All right, welcome back to the podcast. This is B-Side Banter. This is episode number 6, and I am here with Olivier Lafontant, and he is from Pitchfork. And I'm just going to kind of kick it over to you, Olivier. Just maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and go from there.
Yeah, I'm currently an editorial fellow at Pitchfork, which is like essentially just a fact-checking position. But I work full time there, and I've obviously gotten to write a lot about rap and hip hop. Just because that's primarily been my favorite genre since I was a little kid. And yeah, I'm based in Brooklyn. I'm from Broward County, Florida originally, and I used to, write for my undergrad paper and like some local publications back at home, and it's kind of brought me to where I am now. And like, uh, it really came from like just enjoying music, like in the back of my dad's car, or like having conversations about like favorite artists with my friends, and then like,
Yeah.
Eventually writing about it. So like it's been like a pretty natural progression, I'd say.
I saw your review of Osama Sun's Jump Out, and so well written. And I was really drawn to that album again. I kind of wrote it off, but then when I was reading what you were saying, I was like, you know what, I should try this again and listen to it with maybe just a more of an open mind. And then on top of that, I read your kind of list of updates on Playboi Carti from when he announced I Am Music, because everybody's kind of anticipating that. But from what's it like to be kind of in this more of a professional role at Pitchfork? I know that a lot of people that really love listening to music, Pitchfork is like, the holy grail of reviewers, if that
Right,
makes sense.
right. Thank you for like opening with that first and foremost. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I always like really enjoyed writing like fiction and just like writing, what was on my mind like as a kid. And as I kind of got older and I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to head in, I kind of hit a wall like at the beginning of like college. And at some point like during the beginning of like COVID lockdown, like I kind of just like got it in my head that I was just going to continue writing, and I really only wanted to write about music because it was just like I was always like a fan of listening to it, but gradually like I was just like, reading more about it. I would watch so many like reviews and video essays since I was in middle school, and like you said, like Pitchfork is kind of like the mecca of like music media,
Absolutely.
especially music criticism.
Yeah.
Um, so I always say this, like being in the position I'm at right now has definitely been like a dream come true. And like uh working there has been a really fruitful experience. I've been really like blessed to just be around people that genuinely care about music and criticism and just like effective writing. And I feel like Pitchfork has this outward perception of just like being like this hype machine where like people who work at the publication are kind of like this big institution that only cares about like sparking these like fiery conversations about these really like anticipated albums, whereas like it's more so just a group of individuals that are like really steadfast in their own opinions, and like you know there's like a lot of merit that comes with being able to articulate that opinion, and like um that's definitely what I've been able to hone in on the most, since I started working here. And like uh yeah, I don't know, when it comes to like an album like Jump Out, um especially like on an esteemed platform like Pitchfork, I feel like uh that corner of rap music is kind of, I don't want to say like frowned upon, but a record like Jump Out hasn't necessarily gotten uh the acclaim that I feel like that scene of hip hop has like kind of deserved. And like I feel like that was the right record at the time, just because it kind of came with a level of polish and like uh anticipation that hasn't really been seen to this degree, like in this like post COVID, like post Whole Lotta Red era of
Mm,
rap.
yeah.
Um, and I'm 23. Like grew up with Lil Wayne as my favorite rapper. Like
Yeah.
I was a freshman in high school when Carti came out. So like I feel like
Hmm.
the lineage of like rap music in my life has kind of like led me to being the advocate for this like cracked out, like really 808 driven,
Mm,
energetic form of rap,
yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know. I feel like being able to write about it as opposed to speaking about it kind of allows me to like appeal to people's like emotions and
Hmm.
like their sense of like logic as well, like in a different way. And like for you to like have listened or to have read my review and then been able to listen to the album in like a different way is
Hmm.
like a really like endearing thing, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And that I'm sure that is like that's your ultimate goal, right? Is to create continued conversation and to help people kind of not just write something off because in your own words this album is volatile, suffocating, volcanic, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
not like it's a mainstream thing that people are like, oh yeah, like this is so good, it's banger after banger. Like
Mhm.
it's something that is at times almost painful to listen to, but there's a lot of value to it, right?
Mhm.
And I've been really drawn to uh, I don't know enough about all the subgenres of hip hop, so I'm labeling them broadly, and you can
Right.
correct me. But basically, any form of like really experimental hip hop, I'm really drawn to it because sonically, I'm kind of bored, I guess, in
Mhm.
some of the more mainstream stuff. Not that it's not great, but I think I just love when an artist um, comes back to that actual like the artistic side of that, and they're stepping out, they're trying new things, they're taking risks. I think that's super interesting, and I think there's been a lot of really cool development in that area. So yeah, I am curious though, because this is kind of like, to me, I would lump this in with, and you kind of described as well that obviously Osama Sun, his like influence is Carti, Playboi Carti. um this kind of like SoundCloud rap, is that like the genre that it is, or is there a genre title for this?
I guess like SoundCloud rap is just kind of like an umbrella term
Yeah.
for it. Like it just when I wrote that in the like subheading, it kind of just
Hmm.
felt like a catch-all term.
Totally.
But like there are a lot of different ways of describing it. I would say like plug music is
Hmm.
generally like considered like a modern day like offshoot of trap music.
Hmm.
Um and there's like different variations like dark plug and
Yeah.
vamp, like it's just like I don't know. I At the end of the day, to me it's like rap.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you're able to like, I feel like it's more important for me, at least personally, to like draw connections to like influences,
Mm.
and like bodies of work or like artists, as opposed to like just having a name to place under it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um
Totally.
and yeah, I mean, I guess, plug rap generally would like be the way to describe it, but even then, like there's always like a lot of nuance to it that a single
Yeah.
word can't really cover.
Yeah, that's what's so hard about getting so specific in genre and subgenre, is that like not everybody's gonna, it's like you you develop a new subgenre, and it's like people that are kind of influenced by that aren't necessarily going to fit super well
Right.
into it necessarily.
Right.
Sometimes they will, but um yeah, I'm very curious as well, because you gave this album, like, in terms of Pitchfork standards, you gave this, you got the acclaimed, like, whatever that is, the red
The
arrows
Christian
on.
music.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's 8.2, I believe, right, is
Mhm.
what it was. um that's a big time rating in Pitchfork standards. And then on top of that, I feel like, when you do that, you open up a can of worms from people where they're going to be like, what in the world? Like, I can't believe
Yeah.
Pitchfork did this. And of course, they lump you into everybody that's ever written and reviewed on Pitchfork, but
Right.
they say Pitchfork did this. they gave this album this, but this album, you know, a
Mm-hmm.
4 or something, and they're like they get all upset. Um, how does that feel as like just like a human being? Because like I think a lot of the time, like a lot of the time people are like Pitchfork did this. It's like this corporate entity, but it's like actually it's writers that are doing this. Like how first of all, like how cool was it to have this type of a rating? And then on top of that, like what was the backlash for you?
Right. I'm glad you presented it in that way, because like I was like with uh some family yesterday, like
Mm,
um that were in town, and one of my cousins that like I grew up with but I haven't seen him in a while, like was kind of asking me similar questions, and like I
sure.
was like talking to him about like some of the crazy shit that like people have kind of just tweeted
Yeah,
in
I'm sure.
response to me.
Yeah.
Um, with this record in specific, like I was really excited to have like my first best new music. Like
Mm,
I'm not the type of writer that like really enjoys like shitting on somebody. Like
mm,
some people get a kick out of that. Like that's
yeah,
not necessary. Like just in general, like you know, I I'd much rather like be uplifting and like
totally.
talk about something I enjoy. So um yeah, I really did like enjoy the record. Like this isn't like there's no like hive mind mentality when it comes to Pitchfork. Like
Yeah.
of course, like you may agree with your editors on something, you may disagree with your editors on something. Like you may have colleagues that like may, sway your opinion at least slightly one way or another. But at the end of the day, I think if you're writing consistently for the site, like you have like a really strong sense of your own opinion.
Mm,
And it's funny because the night when like the draft was like finalized and like set in, like uh Mono Sundaresan, he's like the editor in chief, and
mm.
like uh he had called me like that night. It was like a Friday night, and he was like, "Yo, like 8.2, like for real." And he was
Yeah.
like, "Are you able to like really like stand on that? Like, can you
Mm,
back this up?" And I had to like give my case, even
mm,
though like he finds enjoyment in the album as well, but even him as editor in chief has to like kind of consult with like the other editors,
mm,
and like you
totally.
know really decipher like whether or not this is like representative of Pitchfork, and like whether or
Mm.
not this is really like what they stand on.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, did you have to present your rating to like a panel? Like, did they have to approve all that? Like I'm just curious because obviously, like you said, there has to be some sort of accountability. Like, they're not just
Right.
hiring a bunch of freelancers and they're like, I don't care what you rate it. Like, they want there
Right.
to be some sort of, you know, I guess objectivity isn't a right word, but something like that, right? It has
Right.
to be kind of in the spirit of Pitchfork. So if you can't talk about this, that's fine. But I would be curious. Like, did you have to present it to a panel? Did they like give you notes on where they thought the rating should be? Like,
I'm smiling because the way you present it, like I'm thinking of like some Eyes Wide Shut type shit where it's like I don't know if you've seen the movie.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
it's this like council of like hooded
Yeah.
figure. Like, nah, it's not as elaborate as it
Okay.
sounds. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I'm not gonna like I don't know how much I can or can't give away, but it's really just like you send in your draft and you have your own idea of a
Mm,
rating, and like it's like it can be a back and forth with your editors,
sure.
or they sometimes like just trust you and
Yeah.
like like allow you to just go with the first thing that you say.
Mm,
But like I said, it's like if it's like a big decision, like a best new music,
mm,
um that those things are like worth discussing, especially with an album like Jump Out, which like I said, like Pitchfork has obviously like championed, you know, I guess like contemporary rap or SoundCloud rap
mm,
um for some time. Like Alphonse Pierre writes so much about just like
mm,
these really like burgeoning like young, really regional artists, and some of them
yeah.
who've gone to like really build on like their own like significant followings.
Mm,
Um but yeah, I really feel like Jump Out in particular like kind of felt like a coronation for like this pocket of modern day rap.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
for
it
sure.
did feel like a big deal. And like, I'm listen, like I'm gonna be the first guy to like Google my name and like see what people were saying, or like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I was on like the hip hop heads like subreddit, like seeing
I
what these
know. I
people were
was reading some of that stuff.
yeah, and I can't recall what people were saying like verbatim, but like, you know, people kind of get like up in arms about this shit. Like they're really
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, like I don't understand what the thought process is, and
Mm,
God doesn't know what he's talking about, whatever it may be. But I don't know, like pretty pretty quickly into my time like working with Pitchfork, I kind of sat with the fact that like this is just like the nature of the game, and like I
yeah.
mean even before, you know, you go through Pitchfork's Instagram comments and like people were, you know,
Yeah.
you know, like
Oh
so
yeah. Yeah,
I
totally.
was like already I had an awareness of it. So by this point it's like, you know, if I'm able to present my opinion in a way that's like significantly um I guess like compelling for lack of a
Hmm.
better term, like I'm okay with it. And if I
Yeah.
believe what I'm saying, then I'm okay with it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever like I guess I'm not sure if you've had kind of this a similar reaction. I did want to talk a little bit about your review of Ian because you've got I kind of wanted to get your highest review and your
Right,
lowest review,
right,
but
right.
I guess my question would be like, have you gotten a lot of kind of this negative chatter over anything else, or has it really been mainly focused on this?
Actually the most negativity I feel like I've gotten was from the Ian review.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and that was my first like album review like on the site. So
that's
you can kind of
crazy.
yeah, you can imagine like what
Jumping into the deep end there.
right, yeah, yeah. But you know, I take it in stride.
Yeah.
With that review in particular, like it was really interesting because um not to like be vain or anything, but like I feel like the Oppenheimer of like the whole Ian thing, because like I wrote about him um in December of 2023,
Okay.
which was like right before he posted the snippet for I think it was Figure It Out or
Mm.
he posted one snippet that like revealed his face, and it kind of like
Yeah.
whole phenomenon kind of took a life
Yeah.
on its own or whatever.
Yeah.
But um this blog called Nobels that the editor in chief of Pitchfork like
Mm.
created like a long time ago. Um, you know, I'd been writing for it for a couple years by that point,
Okay.
and Mono, myself, and Kieran Press Reynolds made a list of like the best so-called like internet rap of
Mm.
2023,
Mm-hmm.
and Ian had this like little EP called Empty Suit with this producer named Gyoza, and my roommate, who's like also super into rap music, you know, he's an artist, a
Mm.
producer. Um, you know, he showed me Ian's music like when I had met him in May of 2023, and it was just like completely separated from like the type of music that he's kind of become known for. And it's like
Mm.
I feel like a lot more experimental and like more rooted in like ambient and like IDM music, as opposed to just like the southern trap music that he's like
Yeah.
trying to adapt into his own sound at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, so like kind of seeing the whole progression of his like music and his image, or you
Mm.
know, it's kind of just been really interesting. Um, because when I first was listening to his music, his face wasn't revealed. His
Mm.
Instagram was like
Yeah.
on private. You know, like I remember joking with my roommate at the time, like just trying to find him on Apple Music, because if you just type in the name Ian, it's just like literally a whole bunch of different things come up. So it was like
Yeah. Yeah.
a thing. Until of course last year, like it kind of just blew up into this entire phenomenon. But yeah, I obviously didn't like the album. I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world, like,
Yeah.
but you know, I just feel like, you know, there are a lot of conversations to be had about um you know, just like the cultural significance and the
Mm.
racial significance of, you know, approaching hip hop, and like the undertones with which you approach it like really matter. And like
Yeah.
I feel like he approached, you know, like his upswing from this perspective of like, I'm this suburban white kid, but like I'm doing, the sound that like the blacks are really into,
Hmm.
and it's like, uh, of course, like hip hop and rap right now is like a very ubiquitous genre, and I'm not saying that like young white kids shouldn't be inspired to, pick up a mic and start rapping, or,
Totally.
I'm not saying a white kid can't be influenced by Gucci Mane or Future or whatever it
Hmm.
may be, but I feel like once you, whether it's direct or indirect, like when you present yourself in a way that's kind of like playing on that dynamic, it's like, oh, haha, funny, like I can do this and act, you know, in a way that's kind of like a deviation from racial norms, and like kind of play the role as like this is what, okay, I'm gonna lead into like why I kind of got shitted on
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
review. So
yeah,
like,
totally.
if you read like Alphonse's review of valedictorian, like he basically posited it as like this kind of form of like uh minstrelsy, or like, kind of like digital blackface,
Hmm.
and like I used like the intro to my review as kind of like a play on that, and I wanted it to be, this kind of thing where it was like the minstrelsy of like Ian's music was perceived as either like, you know, this really cool phenomenon or like the worst thing in the world.
Hmm.
Um, and the way that it ended up coming out wasn't necessarily the way that I intended it. Um,
Sure.
and when I saw the interpretation online, and you know, this like really respected writer like screenshotted the intro, and the lead read something like, the minstrelsy of Ian's first record was either the greatest thing of all time or the worst thing of all time. I'm butchering it, but
I've got it here. You have was either a stroke of genius or the end of hip hop as we know it.
right, right.
Yeah.
And then the guy tweeted a screenshot, and he was like, I didn't know minstrelsy could be a stroke of genius. And I
Mm.
was like, fuck.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that was
okay.
not
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like I wanted to be hyperbolic, and I wanted to kind of be like just have like a lot of like voice and like personality, and like just, a sense of
Yeah.
humor, of course. But pretty quickly, like it made me realize like the gravity of like the platform that I'm on, and like how
Mm.
quickly like a turn of a phrase can be misconstrued.
Totally. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he tweeted that out, and I kept seeing like the amount of likes go up. It didn't like go super ultra viral or anything. Like it
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
has like a little over 1,000 likes, but
Sure.
I saw that and I kept looking at it, and my girlfriend had to be like, yo, like please
Yeah, just
stop
stop.
refreshing it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
move on to the next thing. Like you're
Yeah.
good. But it was a learning process. And
Totally.
under the tweet, like people were saying things like, yo, like this, who was this guy? Like this guy should have his fingers cut off. Like,
Oh my
stuff
gosh.
like
Like
that.
what? Yeah.
I do feel like Ian is like a talented artist. Like I will
Mm.
say that. Like, um, I feel like just like online perception of music in general is very like black or white.
Mm.
Not like racially, but like
Yeah, yeah. No, I get what you're
very
saying.
much like, I either really like this or I really don't.
Totally. Yeah.
I do think he's a good rapper. Like I mean, I still like enjoy like some of his stuff from like 2023 and before, and
Mm.
like I would really like to see, you know, maybe, I mean, obviously like an artist, especially the level that he's risen to at this point, like he's probably gonna do what he can to like keep his core fan base,
Mm.
satisfied at this point. But I think the experimentation and like just like the pursuit of um just like pushing boundaries musically is like really important to
Yeah.
me as like a listener. I'm not saying
Yeah.
like I need to be like challenged 110% every single time I put on a new song, but I thought what he was doing was really, really interesting at the time. So
Mm. Mm.
it was a little disappointing to see that like he's kind of gone this like, more like commercial, uh
Yeah.
really accessible route, but he's selling out shows, he's doing
Yeah.
what he wants to do, so it just is what it is.
I want to talk about Cardi, and you obviously had this pretty long, like several. I don't know how many there were. It felt like there were like 50 or 60 updates.
Yeah,
Like there
I
were
never
quite a few.
seen it, but it was a lot.
um, So I guess my first question is, are you like a huge Carti fan, or was this just something that you were kind of monitoring because obviously it's a big deal in the hip hop world in general?
hmm yeah, no, I would definitely consider myself a big fan of his music.
Okay.
He is definitely one of those artists that have made me realize, like, in my like late adolescence, early adulthood, like the importance of separating like human being from body of work, because
Mm.
him and his personal life is like a whole other conversation. But um
Yeah.
in terms
Yeah.
of like musical output, like
Yeah.
I do really hold his work to a high regard. So like
Yeah.
being
Totally.
able to write that sort of timeline like just made a lot of sense for me, just because
Mm.
like I have like actively been keeping up with just this rollout, from the
Mm.
moment of its inception and like well before then.
Mm.
Like I said, like I was a freshman in high school when he first started like kind of getting buzz.
Mm.
Um so this was like 2015. It's about to be 10 years.
Uh,
But yeah, this is like 2015. And like just kind of being able to see like the progression up until now has been really, really fun.
mm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, in terms of just like the way he keeps his fans waiting, like it's literally that's been attached to his reputation from literally
Yeah.
that point in time. Like
Yeah.
I remember, um, it was the fall of 2015 when I first heard his music, and like he had the song "Broke Boy"
Mm.
like as his like kind of breakout moment. That and like Fetty with Maxwell Cream and Dash, and like from that moment onwards, it was like, yo, like, bro, where's your mixtape at? Like,
Yeah.
you're waiting for the mixtape. And that didn't come out until the spring of 2017. So, like,
Yeah,
there was
man.
a whole, level of anticipation for that. So it's like, it doesn't really feel out of character for
Mm.
him to drag out an album rollout for 4.5 years almost.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it any less frustrating, I guess, as a fan. But, like,
Yeah,
at
definitely.
least for me personally, I've come to this point of like acceptance where it's just like, listen, like when the music is out and like in my Apple library, like I will enjoy it for what it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
you know. But just take everything he says with a grain of salt,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah,
Do you think like it's intentional? Do you think that he intentionally wants to kind of lead for a long time, or do you think it's like, the typical stereotypical like just an artist being an artist, never really like wanting to perfect it and,
hmm
having genuine intentions to release something, but then just being like, nah, I got to do some more on it. I got to do some more.
hmm I definitely think it's a mesh of those things. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely playing into the level of anticipation. Like you
Okay.
see it in like
Yeah.
the social media posts, like he's chronically online like the rest of us. Like he sees like how people are clamoring for the music, but
Yeah.
like I'm sure there's definitely a part of him that wants the record to be out and wants to like embrace the reception of it, and he wants to tour like um so I don't know if there are logistical things that have stood in the way of it.
Mm.
you know, of course, like as an artist, like I'm sure there's at least a part of him that's like second guessing certain ways of, approaching the record,
Mm.
especially
Yeah.
knowing how anticipated this is. So like,
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that come into play. So at the end of the day, it's like all just like a lot of speculation.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm not gonna doubt that he gets a kick out of, just kind of seeing people go crazy over
Yeah.
this shit. Because like,
Yeah.
uh,
He has to a little bit, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh man. It like at what point do you think it like is gonna start working against him? Like at what point can anticipation be so high that there's no way he could deliver?
I low-key think it already kind of is working against
Uh,
him. Like,
yeah.
I think the way he led into that like single run from the end of
Hmm.
2023
Yeah.
was like, I feel like that was like the right time to
Hmm.
like end that run with the full album, with a tour, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. So kind of like having that era of music result in like an elongated waiting time, I feel like was
Mm.
frustrating for people.
Yeah.
But then like for the end of 2024 to come and there still not be like a new album, like I think a lot of people are just really jaded at this point if they
Mm.
weren't already.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I see it in like on Twitter, like the way people kind of respond to like those new Spotify billboards that have gone up, like teasing the record, and just like
Yeah.
every time the man posts a fit pic, like people are just like, "Nigga, drop the album, please." So it's like
Yeah.
it. People are tired of it, but I don't think like I do still feel like the level of anticipation is like higher than it has been for any rap album in a very long time, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
um when it does come out, like it will dominate the conversation for however long, whether it's a good album, whether it's a really bad album, whether it's mid, like
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
that's just
Totally.
where he's at.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like, how did I guess how did you feel as a big fan of Cardi on his actual singles that have been released? Like, did you
Oh,
feel?
I was geeked. I was like
Yeah.
extremely excited. Like,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that single run. Like I would be like in my living room just like playing the shit on my TV, like
Mm,
extremely loud, like
yeah.
rap along to it. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like being in the position I am right now, like professionally, is a result of just like legitimately just being a fan. Like
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and not of him in particular, but just like a fan of
Mm,
rap and a fan of music in
yeah.
general. Just um, I don't know. It's just like the essence of it. So like, yeah, I was really excited during that single run. I really enjoyed the music at the time.
Mm,
And I still look forward to hearing what comes out of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a possibility that those singles won't even be on the album at this
I
point?
don't think they're going to be on the album at all. No, definitely not. I don't know if they ever were meant to be. I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
I kind of appreciate it as its own, like,
Mm,
singular run
sure.
of just
Yeah.
like one off singles. Like,
Yeah.
I think it would be disappointing if they were on the album,
Mm.
after all this time.
What's your prediction? When's he gonna drop it? What do you
Shit.
think?
You know what? There are, people speculating that it could be this week because he posted about,
This week.
people,
Oh.
he posted like this thing on his Instagram, like tagging
Mm,
Spotify and like being like,
mm,
yo, like it's
okay.
time. The
Yeah.
little opium henchman are in his comments, like being all cryptic and saying like, they're ready. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I hope there's some merit to it because, you know, it's been this really anticipated record, and like
Yeah.
it gives me a reason to, listen to something that feels like it should be monumental, like with my
Mm,
friends and stuff. So
yeah. Totally. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and at this point, I feel like he has to drop it as a surprise. Like I feel like he can't like announce like it's coming out at this day, like
yeah,
because I feel like that would ruin all of this anticipation he built. Like, yeah, for him to just be like, you know, December, whatever, 2025, I feel like people would be like, oh, that was kind of anticlimactic. But for him to be like, it's Friday or whenever, he might
yeah,
not even drop on a
right,
Friday. You know what? Like he
yeah,
might drop tomorrow. Like
right,
for like to just drop it and it's out. Like that's just so much more. That just plays so much more into all of this anticipation that was brought. Even Kendrick doesn't have, you know what I mean? Like one of the biggest rappers around right now, especially in the public's eye, in the mainstream. Like he doesn't have this much amount of expectation and anticipation. I think because of the fact that Cardi has a real chance at like taking whatever he's doing to the next level.
right.
Where
I
it's
also
like, yeah,
I also think
okay.
like the fact that Cardi's audience is uh, significantly younger, I would say, than
Yeah,
Kendrick's. I
totally.
mean, of
Yeah,
course, like people of all ages listen to both artists, I would
yeah.
say, but like Cardi's core fan base is like the cusp of like high school graduation, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and that kind
yeah,
of goes back into what I was saying earlier about like, I just feel like you as a human are like the most devoted to like the era of music
yeah,
that was like active and popping when you were like around that age.
yeah, yeah.
Like I went to go see Ken Carson on tour with one of my best friends like uh last fall, and like we've been to Rolling Loud in
Mm,
Miami together. You
yeah,
know, like we've gone to like a lot of shows like of this caliber, and like
yeah.
like I said, like I'm 23, he's 22, so it's like at this point, like we literally felt like elders, like in the pit of the show, like. And
Yeah,
before anybody even came out, before the DJ was even playing music for real, like they're like 16, 17-year-old kids like pushing
right.
and shoving each other, like doing backflips, like all of
Wow,
this
yeah,
stuff. Like
yeah.
we both got our phones stolen that night in the
Oh my
crowd.
gosh.
Yeah. So it's like,
Wow.
but it's like it was such a like hectic and like energetic
Yeah.
environment that it wasn't even like this moment where you even realized it was happening. It was just like
Mm.
I patted my pocket and my phone wasn't there no more. And like my homie ended up finding his phone case on the floor below him, like just
Oh
the
my
case, like no
God.
phone,
That's crazy. Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, like these kids are really like buying into
Mm,
what Cardi and like what all of Opium are really doing, and it's like
mm,
that's why the energy feels so aggressive because it's like this feels like a marker of like what the zeitgeist is at like in
yeah.
this point in time.
Kind of staying on Cardi. I'd be interested in like your five favorite, or because you are a professional, you could say the five best, right? And you could really get people's blood boiling. But what would you say are like your five favorite Cardi songs?
I'm gonna say favorite. I'm not gonna say best. Off rip, I feel like yeah, I'm not trying to piss nobody off. Um, so I guess like number five. So I know like I've been a fan, like I said, I've been a fan for like almost a decade now, but
Mm,
I will definitely say like Whole Lotta Red was like the most like uh like it resonated with me the
mm,
most out of his three records. Like
okay. Yeah.
definitely marked like a huge shift in like my perception of rap and just like
Mm,
music in general.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely really biased towards that album.
Yeah.
Um, so with that in mind,
Hmm.
I think for number five, I'm gonna go Control.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. It gets ruined by that DJ Academics intro. I can't stand that guy. But I feel like my first listen of Whole Lotta Red and like getting to that song in my first listen, I
Mhm.
had such a like visceral reaction to it, like this like head explosion, like oh my god, like he
Yeah.
could really like do this like melodic thing over these kind of like Lady Gaga like 2008 synths. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what it reminded me of at the time.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah. Totally.
I thought it was so sick. Like
Yeah.
just him kind of making this like really demented like love song, even though like
Hmm.
he's
Hmm.
not really saying too much,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
just like the conviction behind it just was like really like invigorating. So
Yeah.
I love that song. For number four, I'm gonna say "Run It" featuring Lil Yachty, which is like a
Mm,
song from like 2015. Um, back when I was still like a kid in high school, I was like 14 at the time,
mm.
and like I don't know. It just like felt like one of those moments, like as a listener, where you kind of feel like you're like on the cusp of something like really cool
Yeah.
that's only
Yeah.
going to keep growing. I'm
Yeah.
just like being a teenager too, like the anticipation that comes with that is just like you get drunk off of that shit. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I hear the beat to this day and it's just like kind of takes me back to that moment. Like,
Yeah.
um, Cardi doesn't even he repeats like the same phrase. Like he has one
Yeah.
line in the song before
Yeah.
Yachty's verse, and it still like makes me feel like
Yeah.
that type of way. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
love that
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah.
Number three, I'm gonna go "Stop Breathing"
Hmm.
for number three. I think like it's definitely like probably like the landmark song on Halal Red. Maybe I guess there's
Yeah.
an argument for Sky, but um, that was another one where it's just like I don't know, you hear that and it's just such a like it just felt like it was like breaking the mold of like what
Mm.
rap felt like
Yeah.
at the time, and
Yeah.
it's still just you could see like the lineage of like where rap has gone like
Hmm.
since that song in particular, and like, you know, I've seen him perform it like a handful of times, and
Yeah.
he would start his sets with that song, so it just like
Yeah.
kind of takes me back to that.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, just super cool like heat check of a song. Like I'm really
Mhm.
feeling myself in
Yeah.
the song, you know what
Absolutely.
I mean?
Yeah. Totally.
So I love that one. And then my top two is like easy for me. Like number
Mhm.
two, I know people that really hate this song, and I've gotten some of my homies to really love this song because I used to
Mhm.
play it in the car so much. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I really love Teen X with
Okay. Yeah.
Future.
Yeah.
Um, I don't. It really sounds like Cardi was like rapping out of his body, like on that song.
Mm.
Like the beat is ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
the cadence that he finds is just like really just like eccentric, like kind of bordering on like goofy, but not like goofy in the sense like I'm laughing at him, but it's just
Mhm.
like how the fuck do you even like get to this point?
Yeah.
Like in the
Yeah.
recording process where you're just like this out of your mind, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I love Future's verse on it. I love Future in general. So like hearing him on a song with Cardi is just like
Mhm.
really dope to me. That was like my most played song of like 2021, I think.
Nice. Yeah.
So yeah. And then for number one, it would definitely be Long Time.
Mm.
I think like that's like that beat really set off like the whole, you want to talk about like subgenres and stuff, like
Yeah. Yeah.
rage rap wasn't really
Mhm.
a thing, I would say,
Yeah.
until,
Mhm.
you know, that song came out, and it kind of like set the tone. And like Art Dealer, like the producer of that song, like opened Pandora's box with that shit, bro. Like I don't know, like it was so like
Yeah.
the honestly like the people had this like perception of Full Auto Red when it first came out, where it was like it had to grow on them, and like they didn't really enjoy it, and it was just kind of strange, like really
Mhm.
off-putting album. Like I actually felt that way about Die Lit when that
Mhm.
album first came out,
Okay. Yeah.
but Long Time was a song that kept drawing me back in.
Mhm.
And like, you know, just the hook on that song, like the kind of feeling of like just like triumph, you know what I mean? And just
Sure.
like raw emotion that comes with it. Like
Mhm.
it still resonates. Like it still gives me goosebumps if I hear it in like the right setting, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. I love it. That's a great top five. I definitely I think I'm with you with Whole Lotta Red. I didn't start listening to Cardi like super early. I'm sure you were there long before I was, but I would have started kind of around Die Lit,
Mm,
and because there was a lot of buzz around that album.
mm,
But yeah, I thought Whole Lotta Red was just so crazy. Like it was just again, I kind of talked about how I'm drawn to like experimental hip hop, and like that was just it. Just yeah, it really just solidified like wow, this guy, he's really trying to just push boundaries, push
yeah.
and he's taking risks, huge risks. Like it's
Mm.
yeah, and he's obviously been rewarded for it. But yeah, no, that's awesome. Um, for like another list, you don't have to do five. You can just do whatever. But I'd just be curious, like who you think are some really cool up and coming artists to kind of keep an eye on in 2025.
Mm. Yeah, I couldn't even limit it to five if I wanted to. I would keep it like exclusively rap just because like I feel like that's the one genre where like I'm actively looking for like new
Sure. Yeah.
artists. When it
Yeah.
comes to like electronic or like rock music, I find myself going backwards more often.
Mm,
Um, but of course, you know, I reviewed the Osama Sun record,
yeah.
really liked. Today in particular, I was listening to this guy from Harlem, Lunchbox,
Okay.
like, and he had this album in 2023 called New Jazz that
Mm,
like put me onto his music. And like I feel like he is one of those artists that is like actively boundary pushing,
mm,
obviously not to like the audience that Cardi is doing it on, like the
yeah.
platform that
Yeah.
he's doing
Yeah.
it on, but he
Yeah.
like New Jazz is just like this really like singular album to me in my head. And like I ran that album into the ground the year it came out, and I re-listened
Mm,
to it today, and it
yeah.
still has that feeling for me.
Mm,
Um, Yapo JJ is like another artist that I really love, and like I feel is like just really kind of off kilter,
Mm.
with like his just sense of melody and like what he does with his voice and the beat selection. Sometimes like he kind of hops on this like 2000s like R&B
Mm.
adjacent type of beat, and just like he always approaches a song, I feel like, in the way that he only does. And I just like when it works, like it works like 100 times over,
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
opinion. Today I was also listening to this kid from Toronto named K Knives.
Mm.
It was like just also just makes really fun like singular music. I'm just like scrolling through my SoundCloud now
Yeah. Yeah.
just to kind of see. Um, Lade is another kid who's pretty cool. Oh, Dev Stacks. I love Dev Stacks.
Mm.
He's like this kid from Massachusetts. I say kid, we're like probably the same age, but he's a dude from Massachusetts who
Yeah.
like is like both a rapper and producer.
Mm.
Who like, dude, his album Scriptures came out 2023 also. And he has this like kind of like spiritual uh element to like his production. Like
Mm.
he's like open about just being a Christian, like that.
Mm.
Not to say he makes Christian rap, because it's not that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there is this like kind of like gospel, like heavenly like aspect to just like the
Mm.
sound palette on this record. And like
Yeah.
I would recommend this album to a baby, like to anybody on
Yeah.
planet Earth. Like
Yeah.
I love just like um the sense of like it's like very orchestral. You know,
Mm.
he uses like a lot of like string samples and like uh these like operatic samples that kind of
Mm.
play into um just like sentimentality, but then like you still have these like really crushing 808s that like,
Mm.
you know, drive it together. And it kind of like he's like just popping his shit while he raps, and it just like sounds super cool, like super emotive. I'm gonna be real, like my first day at Pitchfork, like I was like so just like happy to have like gotten to that point, because I feel like I'd worked so hard to like
Yeah. Yeah.
be in this position. Like I listened to Scriptures like on the train, and like I was like crying on the train to that album. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
this is just like super super like triumphant, like really just like evocative
Mm.
music.
Yeah.
um
Totally. Yeah.
yeah, there's I could talk so long about
Yeah.
like just new artists and shit. Ivy's, like all the kids from like Step Team. This is like this
Mm.
producer rapper collective um on SoundCloud that like are doing, they're just like deconstructing what it even means to like make a rap beat, and
Mm.
like, you know, putting it all together. And like, yeah, so much music out there, but
Yeah.
there's a couple of things.
There is so much. Sometimes it's like so overwhelming to
Yeah.
be like, how, like, where do I go to find this? Like, luckily there's some, there's great publications like Pitchfork that kind of give a nod to some of the smaller people in terms of, platforms, and then you can go down the rabbit hole on Reddit and lots of other places. But yeah, this has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate you kind of giving your time here. I really hope that Pitchfork will give you the nod to do the review for iMusic. So
I kind of doubt it, because
yeah,
Alphonse is like
yeah. I
already
know, I
got
know.
that,
It's a,
but I
well,
appreciate it though.
yeah. Like, hey, let's speak. This is us speaking it out right now.
Yeah,
But I guess at the same time, like, do you want that responsibility? Like, that's
I
gonna
would
be a
take
while.
it.
Yeah.
I would
Okay.
take. I mean,
Yeah.
like, listen, like I told you, I got shitted on my first ever review. Like at
Yeah.
this point,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it can't get worse, but like this
Yeah.
is just like the position that like I asked to be in. So
Mm-hmm.
I would take it in stride if I had the opportunity.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, let's hope that that's the case. But this has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate you coming on. And yeah, I hope that you guys will just check out his reviews on Pitchfork, Olivier Lafontant, and yeah, check him out. I don't know if you have like socials that you're super active on, but you can check him out
Yeah,
on those as well. Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate it.
yeah. Thanks so much, man. This is a really great conversation. Like you said, like
Yeah.
I'm humbled that you reached out to me in the first place. Um, Shameless plug, like my socials are all Olivier said hi, like one word.
That's
I
great.
just
Yeah.
tweet a lot
Easy
about
peasy.
music.
Yeah. That's
and
awesome.
and Arsenal, I'm a big,
Okay. Yeah.
well, you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
that's really it. Yeah, I appreciate you for inviting me on.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, guys, come back next week for another episode, another guest, and we'll see you then.